Yeah, that's not creepy at all. Do you have to notify people when you move next door?
Not anymore.
Hi guys, it's Amanda here, your cutie of Carnage.
And I'm Jess KORESH here on ChannelSundown.
Guys, it is that time of year. It is Halloween. Yes, my favorite time of year. And although we have not been posting a few videos due to a lot of personal stuff going on, I've had sicknesses, everyone's been getting sick and stuff, so we are ready to jump on this Halloween train and ride it right into the 31st.
Sounds fun.
So today, guys, we are doing a review. Yes, we are reviewing 2019's candy corn. Not the candy, not the gross candy that very few people like. I'm not one of them, but...
I was going to say, well, this will be easy. I hate candy corn.
2019 Candy Corn was written and directed by John Hasty.
You know what else he did, man?
What?
He directed the documentary about 31. And I think,
really?
Yeah, it's a full-length documentary. I think it comes with the... I'm doing this because I know the Blu-ray's right behind my head.
Oh yeah.
I think it comes with the Blu-ray. He directed he got to be friends with Rob Zombie, and he made a documentary about the making of 31.
Oh wow, good to know. I was not aware of this. So you have some things I don't know.
That's why I'm here.
Candy Corn stars Courtney Gaines, who plays Sheriff Branford. You guys might know who Courtney Gaines is. I know when I was watching the film, I was like, he looks so familiar. He is older now, but he was actually in Children of the Corn. He was the one that ran out there and was, Outlander! Yeah, that's him. And he's also the guy that you pointed out. See, I knew him from Children of the Corn, and you knew him from The Burbs. So, yeah, he was that guy that didn't really speak, but henchman in The Burbs. So, yeah.
Love the Burbs.
I do too.
We'll do a video about the Burbs one day.
One day. And of course we have Sky Elabar, who you guys know from my favorite film, Greasy Strangler.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I do too. And also there's a little role of Tony Todd, Candyman himself. Yes, Tony Todd.
You have to say his name 3 times. You only say it twice. Tony Todd, Tony Todd, Tony Todd.
Is that how it goes?
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. And of course, Scream Queen herself, Miss P.J. Souls. And of course, playing Dr. Death is Pancho Muller. So the film starts off this group of kids who are hanging out, and they all discuss this kind of Halloween tradition of hazing this man who is mentally handicapped, and apparently it's a tradition every year. They go and they beat up this guy, and they're all talking about how great it is and how they do it every year, and it's their tradition of kind of like hazing him or what have you. And the girl in it is kind of like, hey, we shouldn't do it, guys. This is childish. And they're like, no, we're going to do it. It's tradition. So I guess they're traditionalists.
And even the ones that are like, no, we shouldn't do this. It's wrong. And they still go.
I know. It kind of beats the purpose. But anyways, so they show up to this Halloween carnival kind of thing. And they show up to beat up this guy. But when they show up to beat him up, he decides to fight back and defend himself. Well, they didn't expect him to fight back, and because he fought back, they all decided it was a good idea to beat him to death. Basically.
Because if you're going to do something, do it right.
After beating this guy to death, the head carny guy, Dr. Death, finds the body and is like, what is going on? What happened? And he...
What's the deal?
So he decides that he's going to make things right. So he does the witchy, crazy magic thing and decides to make things right. And that's where I'm going to end it, because this is a non-spoiler review. If we already told anything too much, we're going to end it at that point. So yeah, things ensued, things happened, and yeah. And nobody gets any candy corn. So. But the guy, he does like eating candy corn.
There
so
is candy. There is candy corn in the movie.
Yeah, there is. But anyways, yeah.
But I don't hold it against the movie.
It's a personal choice.
It's called candy corn. I expected at least 1 or 2 pieces of candy corn to be in the movie.
Spoiler alert.
So the first point we're going to discuss is the acting in the movie. Keep in mind this is a pretty low budget movie, so you kind of get what you pay for, I guess. The acting's not bad, but it's the kind of acting you expect for this level of movie. Even though it does have some bigger names in it, you know, they are kind of B-movie actors and actresses.
Cult horror actors
Exactly.
that horror fans know.
Yeah. So, I mean, this movie's not going to win any Academy Awards for its acting, but if you're into this genre of movie and you like these kind of films, it's the kind of acting that you expect to get.
It's what you drive for. It's kind of like if you're a horror fan, you know, that's what you get. And then like you said, it's not bad, but it's horror acting at its finest.
There you go.
There you go. That being said about the acting, the story itself.
Well, I thought the story was...
Pulling an Amanda there.
The story has familiar elements from a lot of different horror movies. It's not reinventing the wheel per se, but it's not a remake, it's not a rehash. It is a completely original story that's a little different. But, you know, it's got all those classic elements that horror fans are going to be used to. But like I said,
that are required.
Yeah, like I said, it gets bonus points in my book for somebody actually writing and directing an original story that they wrote that's not a remake of something else. It's not, you know, a reboot or rehashing or some same story that's been told a million different times. You know, it is a familiar type story, but it's not something that you've actually seen before.
I felt that the story was very, I'm not going to say boring or uninteresting, but it was very cliche and a point of it was very original in the standpoint of people who aren't used to the horror genre per se, I guess, really thought it was different and everything. I thought it was alright. Okay. That being said, we're going to go ahead and point out our pros and cons.
You are super animated this evening.
I'm always animated. I haven't done a review in a while, so I'm very animated. It's Halloween, be animated.
Anywho, my pros of the movie would be, like I said before, it's an original story. It gets points in my book for that. The same guy wrote it and directed it, and it was a labor of love for him, from what I understand. And it's not a high budget movie; it's a low budget movie, but you know it's got heart, and I enjoyed it. It was fun.
There you go. My pros, I guess, were kind of like, there's a lot of points of, like, I thought were, like, kind of like, I could tell what was going to happen next. There's a few scenes, like, you know, I was kind of like, oh, well, I like how they switched that, because, you know, usually when you watch a film, you have the final person who's, like, you know, the person that you expect. And this film kind of like flipped it over a little bit. You know, you don't really, you're kind of like, oh, well, they made it? Oh, okay. Well, they're making it? Okay. It was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Without getting into spoilers, I was kind of like, oh, well, that's different. That wasn't predicted. And then that happened, and then the rest was predicted. So it was kind of like, it was, you know, it was what it was. But I liked how they switched some things up in the story. And I liked some of the kills. I would say I like some of the kills. Not in the standpoint of I don't like sitting there and I don't like enjoy seeing them die, but I like the originality that they did. Like, it was very original, a few things that they did. It was very comedic. without being too slapstick, it was still kind of funny at the same point. Like I said, candy corn, you know. Without spoiling any scenes, you know, candy corn has a lot to do with it. So, there you go. So, those were my pros. Now, here goes the cons.
I'm going to call these my candy cons.
You should write that down.
I have 2 cons, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I may have more once I start talking. One of them was that they didn't use, there were certain characters that they didn't use, I didn't feel like weren't in the movie enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the killer, like, I feel like the scenes where he was killing people,
Mm-hmm.
they were really short. And, like, you really overall didn't see enough of him. And there were a couple of other actors. Some of the actors, I don't want to give anything away, but some of the
Mm-hmm.
actors were in the movie, like, the entire length of the film, but they only had a few lines, and I figured they would talk more. And then there were other actors who I was really kind of excited about seeing in the movie, and then they get killed off. Like, I was like, that's one thing that did surprise me about this movie, because I remember thinking like, oh wow, I expected that person to last a lot longer, you know?
Yeah.
So they kind of mixed it up in that way, because usually when you're watching horror movies, you can like, okay, that person's going to go first, that's second, third. And like you kind of mentioned and hinted at earlier, they kind of mess with that a little bit. So that would just be my cons. I would have liked to see, my main con would have been would have liked to see more of the killer.
My cons would be, although there were things that are predictable, I can't really put that as a con because, I mean, it's a slasher horror film. It's been done for so long, you know, you're going to be able to predict some things. My cons were going to be, without, like I said, spoiling anything, there was a few characters that I thought that were used, that were kind of emphasized too much and too long. There's a few characters I think could have been pushed a little more, that I would have liked to see more, and I thought it would have been very entertaining had they kind of emphasized their character and kind of just the grasp of who they were and how weird they were, and I would have liked to see kind of like that been pushed more. So yeah, my cons, I can't really say for it being predictable because, hell, slasher films, spoiler alert, most of them are predictable. But I would have liked if there was a little more. Like I said, you know, there were some parts I was like, oh, I liked how they did that. But I would have liked them to emphasize the right characters longer than the ones that they did. Although, I forgot to say my pros. I thought it was I really liked the Tony Todd character. And I liked how they kind of emphasized the freaks without being too much of a freak. They emphasized the you know, the story of the folklore and the, you know, mystical stuff, and I thought that was pretty cool how they kind of switched that up and kind of, you know, kind of dived into there more. But I wish they would have dived into it a lot more, because had you known the story behind the magic and, you know, how it kind of came to be, it would have been anyways. But like I said, you either get too much info or not enough info. So there it goes. You win, you lose. You bitch about the same things.
It would have been interesting to write their story, because they're like a family basically, and that's part of the reason why they decided to set out on revenge. Because I think part of what we left out is that this kid, he was actually working for them.
Yes.
For the summer, and so there was that bond, and they all have this this bond. And but you know, you feel it, but they don't really go into it a lot, because you know these characters have all known each other for a really long time. And they're really protective of one another.
And they do kind of get into it, like I said, without spoiling, because we're not going to spoil it. They do kind of get into the story a little bit, but they don't really emphasize it enough. But they do kind of tell the story, like at the very end, you know, they kind of like explain everything. But I think it would have been more interesting had they dived more into it, like a lot more, versus, you know, the drama behind the teenage characters, because I got kind of, I didn't see the characters weren't, even like the ones who weren't too bad, I didn't feel really for. That might just be me, other people might. I didn't really like the characters as much. The only characters I liked were the carnies. So, yeah. That being said, that's my cons. I'm going to stop bitching now, but yeah.
So let's hear your verdict.
Okay. my verdict of the film is going to be, it's a good time. It's a good time. It's not anything that I would sit here and be like, it's fantastic, y'all should go see it. I mean, I think y'all should go see it if you want. It's a good Halloween film. It's a good Halloween film, you know. There's not many of those I would really say watch it. It's a good time, you know, to watch on Halloween, because, you know, a lot of those I have are 80s films. But I felt like this film had a lot of 80s kind of S to it. Not just the people in it, like Tony Todd and PJ Souls. Well, that's kind of like more 70s. But anyways, like Candyman's, like, not Candyman, PJ Souls. Anyways, but I felt like it was a good time. It's not anything that it's not like my favorite. I don't think it's that. It's not like something I'm just like, hey, have y'all seen Candy Corn? Like, but I never get excited about candy corn, so it's either hit or miss. So candy corn is, I don't hate it as much as candy corn, but candy corn is good time. Good time.
But you don't love it as much as Reese's Buttercups.
That is a personal decision. Mr. Crash, your verdict.
Well, you know what's funny about my verdict?
What?
Is before I saw this movie, I read a lot about it, because it was one of those movies I was really interested in this movie for some reason, even when I first heard about it. And I mean, I didn't read like any spoilers for it or anything like that, but I read a lot about it, like what people thought. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I discovered about this movie is that it was very polarizing. Either mm-hmm. people really loved it or they really hated it. Mm-hmm. And so, but I found myself just, it was okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't love it, but I definitely don't hate it. You know what mm-hmm. I'm saying? Like it's not one of my top favorite movies, but it was a fun movie. Mm-hmm. It, like you said, it's a nice addition to the Halloween, you know, your Halloween movie collection mm-hmm. to watch on Halloween. It was a fun movie. Like I said earlier, they didn't reinvent the wheel with this one, but mm-hmm. it was a fun movie. I don't mm-hmm. like, there are a lot of people hating on it, and I don't understand why they would. I would never hate on it, but like I said, I wouldn't give it an A+ either. I'd give it, you know, it's like a B-, C+ movie for me.
Well, the main reason I want to kind of see it is like kind of like the reason why I think they kind of got into it is kind of like I felt like the kind of horror-esque kind of like tropes, you know, they have, you know, Candy, you know, you have Tony Todd, you know, PJ Souls, you know, Courtney and Gaines, you know, I was like, oh wow, this is kind of like a fan kind of like high five to horror fans. So I was like, oh, I want to see what they do with it. So I don't think I would have been into as watching it if they wouldn't have been in it. So that being said, you know, yeah, I agree with you. It's all right, guys. It's like you said, it's a good time. It's a good time. Anyways, guys, that concludes our review of Candy Corn. What did you guys think? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? Do you guys have pros and cons that you thought we left out? Let us know.
Hey!
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 Let us know. Comment below. Yes, guys. And it is that time of year, guys. We have a lot of reviews coming out. We are a little behind due to life things happening. Yes, I am mother and I have things going on. I had doctor's appointments. So now that that's all clear, we're getting back into this Halloween train going into the 31st. Anyways, guys, we seek approval, so do not forget to like and subscribe. Yes, like and subscribe. And until next time, y'all, bye.
Bye.
Every time you talk about something and you do your verdict, people told me it looks like I'm rolling my eyes, guys. No, I'm looking around the room, and when I do that, I notice sometimes it looks like I'm going, and I'm not. I'm looking around the room because my neighbors are loud, so I'm like trying to listen for noise, making sure. But anyways, no, so I'm not rolling my eyes.
Well, I didn't realize that was a thing until just now.
True story.
Well, if she's talking and it looks like I'm rolling my eyes, it's because I am rolling my eyes.
You most likely do.